Welcome to the Diversity Connector podcast, where we explore the rich tapestry of human experiences. I'm your host, Gertrude Mache, and I'd like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the country on which we meet today. I would also like to pay my respects to elders, past, present, and emerging, and together as we dive into conversations that bridge cultures, challenge stereotypes, and celebrate the unique perspectives each of us brings to the table. Each episode is a journey through stories and insights from a kaleidoscope of voices, each sharing their colorful narrative. Whether you're at home, on the go, or just anywhere in between, you're now part of a community that values understanding, inclusivity, and the beauty of diversity. So plug in your headphones, get comfortable, and let's connect through the power of our shared stories. Welcome, and thank you for joining us on the Diversity Connector podcast. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Diversity Connector. This is Gertrude Mache here in beautiful Melbourne, Australia. And today I am graced with the presence of yet another fascinating guest. Welcome, welcome, welcome to our tribe. Please tell everybody your full name, where you're based, and share your story with us today.
Thank you so much, Gertrude. Yeah, my name is Joe Pane. I'm based out of Noosa in the Sunshine Coast in Queensland. I'm actually ex-Melburnian. We lived there for a long time. We've been here in Noosa for a couple of years. Thanks for having me. I really appreciate you inviting me and finding me on LinkedIn. It's deeply appreciated. So I'm an expert in human behavior. I've been running my own training and coaching business now 18 years. I just realized that because coming up very soon is my 18th anniversary. So I've got a psychology, sociology background. Way back when I completed my degree back in the 90s, I started working at Ford Motor Company as a rehabilitation counsellor. And it was my first real job in a real world, and it was a rude awakening because I was unaware of politics, agendas, secondary agendas. I was dealing with shop stewards, union leaders, managers, medical centres, all kinds of insurance companies. It was a very complex network of politics. And anyway, the reason why I'm sharing that with you is because that was my first job straight out of university when I completed my majors in psychology and sociology. It was a rude awakening. I couldn't stand it. And 2 years in, I remember walking through the Ford Motor Company cafeteria, having a waking up moment where I thought, is this how it's going to be for the next 30, 40 years of my working life? So I desperately wanted to get out of Ford. The only thing I had clarity on was that I wanted to work with people. I've always been fascinated by human behavior. I've always been fascinated by just the whole psychology space and philosophy space and spiritual space. And so I left that work, and I didn't know what to do. And I ended up starting a career in residential real estate sales, which was quite surprising to me. And that was for the next 7 years. And that changed my life because the first 15 months of those 7 years, I needed to go out to the streets, literally, and door knock and meet people to build my database. And this was my first real deep end of the pool introduction into the world of uncertainty. I had never experienced this kind of uncertainty before, where I had no idea what was going to happen next, literally from door to door to door. And as you can imagine, I met a whole plethora of different kinds of people. And unbeknownst to me back then, but that was the seed of which really began my journey into becoming an expert specifically in the realm of emotional fitness. And I'll circle back to my story in a moment. But emotional fitness is something that is a deep driving passion of mine because and emotional fitness can be described in many different ways. But in our community, in the community that I run and lead in emotional fitness, it's called the Emotional Fitness Formula. We say that emotional fitness is about transforming your relationship with uncertainty. I believe that from a psychological standpoint, even a spiritual and obviously an emotional standpoint, the most important relationship we could possibly have is not with a person, although obviously people relationships are very, very important. But psychologically speaking, the most important relationship we could have is our relationship with uncertainty. And I'll talk more about that in a moment. So in those first 15 months, I got to learn how to think on my feet. I had no idea what the next day was going to bring. My world was riddled in uncertainty and challenge and adventure and the unknown. And that really accelerated my growth as a person and as a man and as a human being. And so I stayed there for 7 years, and then I began, after 5 years of those 7 years, I became disengaged with my work, and I didn't know what was going on. I thought maybe I was getting depressed or something. I didn't really know why the things that used to excite me stopped exciting me. And I wasn't motivated by the same things that motivated me. I wasn't interested in buying another car or a bigger house or anything like that. I just began to disengage from the material world, and I didn't have a clue what was going on. And it wasn't until Silvana's my wife, and Silvana had a dear friend of hers over at our place, and she was unusually perky and excited this particular weekend when her name's Lainey. She came and visited us, and she had just come back from a meditation, a residential meditation retreat, and she was telling me all about this and how great it was. And for the first time in a couple of years, I had noticed a stirring of excitement within me about this whole topic of altered states of consciousness, spirituality, emotional well-being, and meditation itself. So I went onto their website, this particular company where Lainey, our friend, went to to this particular retreat. And long and the short of it is, I ended up speaking to the director of that company, and I volunteered. They had no jobs going, and I volunteered to go and work there for free, which I couldn't believe I was even doing this. And I ended up spending 15 months, the next 15 months, on a crazy sabbatical where I worked with this wonderful couple. Michael and Marlise were their names. They were just beautiful people. I went on this quest. I didn't even know I was on this quest. I literally did vision quests. I did 7-day silent retreats, multiple, 3-day silent retreats. These breath work, all these terminologies that are a lot more known, I guess, in today's world. But back in 2003, 2004, breath work I'd never heard of. I'd never heard of a vision quest. I'd never heard of being on retreat and being silent for 7 days. I'd never heard of that. And it was another high quality introduction into developing my relationship with uncertainty. And again, I had no conscious awareness that this was building within me in terms of like starting to create a philosophy around how to navigate uncertainty well. So did that for 15 months. And the reason why I was 15 months is because I started running out of money and I had to go back and work. So my previous employer I had a great relationship with them. So they took me back in. I lasted there all of 9 months. I just didn't fit there anymore. And the next transition transformation for me was in February of 2006, starting my own consulting, training, coaching business and utilizing my psychology, sociology background, which I hadn't really tapped into since I was at Ford Motor Company all those years earlier. And another introduction into uncertainty, because now I'd been an employee all up for nearly 10 years with a few breaks in between. And this was the first time where I was completely responsible for, earning money and creating a business, finding clients and all that kind of thing. And it was the first 2 years were challenging, to say the very, very least. And I got through that 2-year period. I got through the first 3 years, and really it took me about 4 or 5 years to find my feet and really start to build confidence within my ability to serve people and truly make a difference in terms of people's thinking. And what I had become was I had become a professional perspective shifter. And you shift one's perspective and everything changes. As Wayne Dyer used to say all those years ago, all change is only one thought away. So, and my journey began. And here we are 18 years in. And so the emotional fitness formula has been created based on all of those experiences, plus the frameworks that I've developed over time to help people. So the emotional fitness formula now has been, tried and tested on literally tens of thousands of people in thousands of workshops over the last 18 years, or hundreds of workshops in the last 18 years. And it's been a remarkable journey. And so emotional fitness, let's circle back to that. So as I said earlier, or just a few minutes ago, emotional fitness is measured by the quality of our relationship with uncertainty. And my emotional fitness formula has 5 core principal areas or focus points that is at the core of emotional fitness or emotional fitness formula. So just a quick distinction here, because Gertrude and I just had a very brief conversation before hopping on here. And the difference between emotional intelligence and emotional fitness is that emotional fitness is it's like a preparedness. It's a readiness to engage in life's challenges and stresses and pressures and uncertainty in resourceful ways. The purpose of becoming emotionally fit is not to make uncertainty easier, because otherwise it wouldn't be uncertainty. It's about navigating uncertainty in effective ways with clarity and direction. That's very different to just being lost in the tunnel of fear, not knowing what's coming up around the corner. Emotional intelligence is more, it's more self-awareness, awareness of self, awareness of others. There's overlap between the two. There's no doubt about it. And maybe we can talk about that in the Q&A part. But the 5 core focus areas of emotional fitness formula are these. The first one, and these are in orders of poundage or orders of power. The first core principle or focus point of emotional fitness is identity. And identity, put simply, is what we allow ourselves to be defined by. Now, our identity is very, very powerful, because whatever we define ourselves by, what defines us, what we allow ourselves to be defined by, what defines us, owns us. So what does that even mean? So, for example, if I'm defined by the results I'm getting in my business or by the results I'm getting in my career, then I'm going to become hypersensitized to those results. So in other words, what that means is that if I now am not getting the results that I want, I'm now going to begin taking those results profoundly personally, because it's part of my identity, you see. So, and then I'm going to be experiencing wild pendulum swings emotionally, and I won't be handling the uncertainty and the pressure that business and having a career and all that kind of thing brings. So there's a lot more to be said about identity. So identity is the first principal area, and what we do is we explore the 5 identity phases that all of us go through in life, that's based on Jungian psychology. And happy to explore that in the Q&A if you like as well. The second core area or principle of emotional fitness is life stages. And by life stages, we're talking about the journey from ambition to meaning, from egocentricity to heart centricity, and eventually to spirit itself, which is a whole other conversation. And then the third core focus principle is values. Values in the emotional fitness work is defined as our emotional compass. It's the realization of our deepest desires and expressing those desires in our life to the world. And most people that, in my experience of running all these workshops over all these years, my experience has been is that most people don't know their values. And there's many reasons for that, or why that is. One of the reasons is because people confuse their values with their morals. That's a whole other conversation as well. I'm just trying to fit everything in here that I can in the 15 minutes. And then we've got the fourth core area, which is emotional flexibility, realizing that our emotions don't respond to facts. Our emotions respond to our perception of the facts. And we are in complete control of what we perceive to a certain degree. I shouldn't say complete control, that's not accurate, but to a degree we are in control of that. And then we have the fifth part, which is perspective. So it's really important that we build a clean and healthy perspective so we can lean on our perspective when times get tough, when things get challenging. I'm sure you've all been told before by somebody at some stage, at some point, hey, listen, you just got to get things into perspective. When we're caught up in the micro drama of a daily issue or a fire that we're putting out or a problem that we're facing, seeing it from the perspective vantage point is really, really powerful. But it's only powerful if we have a very clean and healthy perspective. And in the work, we talk about how you can actually create that in your psychology. So they're the 5 core focus areas or principles. And I've just recently become an author. I've just released a book that is based on those 5 principles. It's called Courage to Be You. a guide to mastering uncertainty, or guide to becoming a master of uncertainty. And that's available on Amazon now as well. That was only released about 3 months ago. So I'm very, very proud of that. So finally, what I'm excited about is that finally this work in the form of the book, Courage to Be You, is now getting out into the world, because up until this point, the only people that I've been able to deliver this to are my audiences and my clients. But to actually get the book out into the wider world is very, very exciting. So yeah, that's the essence. That's the essence of it. And what's exciting is that coming up very, very soon on February the 2nd is we've got a 3-part series called, it's the 2024 Uncertainty Mastery Bootcamp. It's a 3-part free training series. It's an opportunity for you to come and see the work that I do. And if it resonates with you genuinely and profoundly, then you're welcome to join me on the journey into becoming a practitioner of emotional fitness, and joining me in the accreditation program that follows after that. So, but that kicks off on February the 2nd, and there'll be a registration link somewhere here for that. But that's the essence. That's the helicopter ride over my journey.
Fantastic, Joe. Thank you so much for sharing your knowledge, your nuggets of wisdom with us this morning. I'm just going to share your website in case anybody wants to get in touch with you. We have it there at the bottom of the screen.
Thank you.
So you sound like you were on quite a journey yourself personally, and it has led you to this amazing space where you're now empowering other people to really tap into the essence of who they really are. So can you discuss how emotional intelligence plays a role in creating an inclusive and diverse environment in organizations, and as well as emotional fitness? Because I feel like the two go hand in hand.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's a big question. That's a very big question. So emotional fitness, as I was saying earlier, is about being psychologically well equipped, having the psychological resources to effectively navigate the pressures and the challenges that come with our roles. And emotional intelligence is having an awareness, like there's lots of different angles to awareness, but one of the perspectives of awareness of emotional intelligence is having an awareness, Gertrude, of the impact that we are making on other people. In other words, how is it that we are contributing to how other people feel with the way that we communicate, with the way that I run a meeting, with the way that I say hello to someone, down the hallway, to how it is that I deal with my clients, or whatever the context is. And so, to me, inclusivity to me is an extension of respect. So it's respecting and having an awareness of the impact that you're making by the way we communicate, by the language that we're using, the tone that we use, and what's our intention behind every communication point that we have. Like, what's our intention? Is our intention to gain, to get? Is our intention to win? Is our intention to serve, to love, to improve? Is our intention to have someone feel better than what they felt like than before they spoke with us? Intention is a big part of it.
So when training teams from diverse backgrounds, how do you tailor your mind stretch strategies to meet the varying needs and perspectives?
Yeah. Great question. So there's a critical thinking principle that I've included in my emotional fitness work, which is actually available. Like it's no one's IP. It's just sort of out there in the universe. It's a principle that was designed by a Russian philosopher nearly 100 years ago. And this principle is called the map is not the territory. And map simply means our model of the world, and territory are the facts. So in other words, or a different way of looking at it is that our maps or our models of the world are all unique. There are 8 billion people on the planet. There are 8 billion different models of the world. And so one of the many ways that I introduce this work into all kinds of diverse audiences or groups or even organizations is that I introduce this principle, because this principle teaches us the importance of letting go of the old golden myth, which is, treat others as you want to be treated. Forget that. I don't believe that works. I think what works is learning how to treat others as they want to be treated. That's very different to us walking around going, I'm going to treat you the way I want to be treated. Well, hold on. How do you know that the way that you want to be treated is respectful of this other person's model of the world? The only way that you can be respectful, well, not the only way, one of the ways you can be respectful of somebody else's model of the world is to drop judgment, replace it with curiosity, and ask questions about whatever the context of the conversation is, so we can start gaining clarity on this person's philosophy, perspectives, and their model of the world. And there's a lot more to it than what I'm saying here because we've got a short period of time. But I'm sure you get the gist of it. And that is that, and this is where emotional flexibility, the fourth core principle of emotional fitness, plays out really strongly, because when we have emotional flexibility, that's connected to having behavioral flexibility and psychological flexibility. So we can have a healthy respect for somebody else's model of the world, because we are going to meet people who think in ways that are very different to us. And sometimes we'll be misunderstanding, because the moment the curtain of judgment falls, well, you can't see anything. But if you can part that curtain with curiosity and have a real look at, asking different questions, because when you're curious, Gertrude, different questions come out of our mouths versus when we're judging someone, right? So the map is not the territory. Goes a long way in helping with what you're saying, with what you're asking.
It's almost having that childlike curiosity and being open to differences.
Beautifully said.
I love that.
Yeah, beautifully said.
So what are some of the challenges that you've encountered in delivering diversity training, and how have you overcome them?
Well, it's really easy in the human behavioral space to be misunderstood. And something that I'll talk about in Courage to Be You is that I believe that to have one of the aspects of having the courage to be you is to be prepared to be misunderstood. And as long as the intention, circling back to the intention point, as long as the intention behind what we are communicating is coming from a place of love and not from a place of fear, then it will be received in a very, very different way. And so some of the challenges that I've, especially in my early days, Gertrude, when my language probably wasn't as clear in my mind and I was trying to teach all this stuff, is that often I've been misunderstood and misunderstood in a way that people thought that I was judging them, or someone would feel judged in the audience or or disrespected. But that was really, really rare, because as soon as I saw that happening once or twice in my early part of my career, I quickly began to self-correct the languaging I was using so it could be more broadly accepted, if I'm making any sense at all. So, because language is so powerful. And when you see, this is the thing, one of the most significant reasons why people have the problems that they have is because they can't language what's going on inside them to the outside world, because they don't have the power of language to describe whatever this complexity of this issue is. But once they're gifted with the power of language to actually get that out there, as they say, a problem well described is a problem, that's pretty much 70, 80% solved. So, so I'm not sure if I've answered your question, but.
No, that does. So how does your behavioral profiling assist in understanding and appreciating diversity amongst individuals and teams?
Yeah, so thanks for asking about that. So behavioral profiling in the form of extended DISC is one of my is a behavioral profiling platform that I've been using now since 2010. What's really good about that is that it's a behavioral profile, not personality profiling. So what this means is that when this gets taught to whatever audience or whatever group I have in the room, is that it's about understanding energy. It's about understanding your energy flow. So a behavioral profile is different from a personality profile in the sense that personality profile, you run the risk of pigeonholing people and putting them in categories and boxes. Whereas a behavioral profile is energetically based. So what does that actually mean? So for example, if I was doing your profile, Gertrude, and let's just say that it turns out that your profile indicates that you're an extrovert. It means that energetically you get energized, your psychological batteries become full when you're with people and engaging in rich conversation. Or let's just say your profile was different to that. Let's just say it was the opposite of that. which would be, say, more the introverted person, where, you know, you get drained by people, so you need to recharge by being alone, say. So if that was the case, so in other words, it's about understanding how we are energetically wired. And the key thing there is that we're all born with our profile within us, and the self-discovery journey, I cannot speak highly enough of it. It's the journey of self-discovery, self-knowledge, you know, what sort of psychological vehicle have we been born into? It's really, really important, because metaphorically, if you are a Formula One car and you can drive fast around flat roads, and yet you find yourself with the four-wheel drives going up a mountain, you're going to struggle to keep up with the four-wheel drives. And then the ego in the car is going to start making up all these stories around, I'm not good enough, I don't deserve this, why can't I do this? There must be something wrong with me. No, it's just that you don't know yourself and you're in the wrong space. You need to be on the Formula One track, you see. Mm-hmm. So that's the best metaphor I can think of in this moment to explain it, because unless we know who was it, the famous philosopher said, know thyself? I've gone blank on
know thyself.
Yeah,
yes.
It's and behavioral profiling is about that. It's understanding how was your energetic profile created within you, and you need to be aware of how that runs, because to me, life is not about time management. It's about energy management. So
yeah, that's so true. So working with a range of clients must be quite fascinating. How have these diverse experiences shaped your approach to emotional fitness and diversity training?
It's influenced the emotional flexibility component big time, because in the emotional flexibility part of the emotional fitness formula, we talk about how we are meaning-making machines in a world that has no meaning. So, in other words, we are continually generating interpretations of what's going on around us, and quite often, the meanings that we give conversations or experiences or what it is that we're observing is coming from within us. And circling back to the curiosity point, when we can start getting curious about what the other person's making things mean, so I'll give you a very simple example. In a lot of my trainings, I just put a word onto the table. I might say something like, intensity, and I might have 100 people in the workshop, and I ask them all, what does intensity mean? And they write down, what intensity means to them. Putting the dictionary aside, what does it actually mean to you? And we get all of these different words, hard, full on, excited, stressful, fearful, charged, all these different angles on the word intensity. And then I pick two people who've got completely different perspectives on the word intensity, and we have this mock-up conversation, say whether it's in a meeting or whether it's in a relationship, and how easily they are misunderstanding each other. So what I love is that with all these different audiences, it's been fascinating, even with that one word, Gertrude, just that one word, intensity. The amount of definitions I've come across for that one word has been fascinating, like definitions I never even thought of. So it's broadened my perspective on humanity, because you have a direct experience of models of the world that are completely different, and I love that. It's an eclectic blend of beauty.
So let's finish off and talk a little bit about your book. How does your book, Courage to Be You, apply to individuals facing challenges related to diversity and inclusion?
So thanks for that. Thanks for asking about the book. So in Courage to Be You, there's a lot of focus there on the journey from ambition to meaning, and how we can get lost inside the journey from ambition to meaning. In other words, as we grow older, our priorities change. What once mattered matters no more. There's new things that matter. The values evolution is continual. And what happens is, as we traverse from the ambition-driven world into the meaning-driven world, we begin to notice that our lives have never been about us. So we start focusing more on contribution. We begin to realize that our purpose can only ever be found in contribution to somebody else. We begin to realize in a very obvious way that the human being is wired to serve. It's like understanding how nature works. In the meaning-driven world, our psychology becomes realigned to nature and the trees and everything. And what I mean by that is that if you take a leaf off any tree and look at the cells within that leaf, the cells that are full of vitality are the ones that are contributing. But the cells that don't contribute get annihilated because there's no purpose for them in nature. And this is going to sound very, very harsh, what I'm about to say. But if the individual is not contributing, there's no point in them being there. So if I'm not contributing to my marriage will fall apart. Yeah. If I'm not contributing as a team member to whatever the purpose of the team is, I'm going to lose my job. And I can say many other examples. So the meaning-driven world is where we become contribution-based rather than ambitious-based for self. Yes. And eventually the meaning-driven world leads to a place of spirit where we begin to realize that we're all living in a dream that we have created and learning how to get out of that dream through becoming loving and forgiving. And that's a whole other conversation.
I love it. Wow, Joe, thank you so much for coming online and sharing your nuggets of wisdom with us today. I've got your website at the bottom of the screen. If anybody wants to reach out, please do. The Diversity Connector is bringing us people from all walks of life, inspiring us with knowledge, with skills, with ideas to really celebrate our diversity as human beings. So tune in again tomorrow when I interview yet another amazing guest. In the meantime, have a fantastic day, morning, or evening, wherever you are in the world. And Joe, thanks again for the interview. And that's a wrap, everybody, on today's episode of the Diversity Connector podcast. Thank you for tuning in and being part of our vibrant and global conversation. I'm your host, Gertrude Mache, and it's been an honor to share this space with you, where voices from all walks of life come together to weave a tapestry of diverse perspectives. Remember, every story you've heard today is a thread in the larger fabric of our shared humanity. So, as you step back into your world, carry these stories with you and let them inspire you to embrace and celebrate the rich diversity around us. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review our podcast to help us share these inspiring stories with more listeners. Do follow us on social media by looking for the Diversity Connector podcast for more updates. Until then, keep connecting, keep listening, and keep celebrating the beauty of diversity. This is the Diversity Connector podcast signing off. Stay curious, stay open, and definitely stay connected.